Just some quick thoughts. I've been thinking about offense, and offense is an interesting phenomenon. We usually think about it relative to a situation where somebody's been hurt or betrayed by somebody else. But there's a more sneaky type of offense that all of us are likely to be captured by. Let's say that my ministry is to the poor, and I've given my heart, I've given my blood, I've given my money, my prayers, my time, my effort, everything about me, my whole self is given to the poor. But there's others around me, maybe in the church I go to, or maybe among the people that I run with. They don't seem to care about the poor. And I believe that everybody should care for the poor like I do. If they love Jesus like I do, they'll care for the poor. And so suddenly I develop a judgmental attitude, a critical spirit towards them. I never stop to think that God hasn't called them. He has me, but now they offend me because they don't care about the poor. I've also seen this kind of attitude emerge in prophetic or intercessory people. They become offended because, let's say, the rest of the world doesn't see what they see, doesn't feel what they feel, doesn't hear what they hear, or don't lie on their face before God. They don't carry the same burden. They don't travail. They don't stay awake all night. They're not called to the realm of burden bearing. And so prophetic and intercessory people are particularly intense, and they'll become offended by those around them who don't have this. Jesus talked about the poor. Jesus talked about those in prison, and he said we're to care about him. And so we can begin to judge everybody by, do they seem to care about the poor? Do they seem to care about those in prison? If they don't, they're neglecting their godly responsibility. Why am I saying all this? Well, you can look at church leaders too. Let's say you have a certain kind of church, you have a certain kind of belief about what that church should be, what it should look like. And so then you judge everybody else. You're critical of what their church is, how they do church, what their church looks like, what they focus on, because you feel so strongly about what the church should be and do. And so suddenly you find yourself with a critical, judgmental spirit. In other words, you're offended by those other leaders who aren't seeing things the way that you do. Why do I say all this? Because historically, to be honest, I've experienced this myself. I've judged others out of my own calling, my own responsibility before God, my heart towards a certain area, my passion, etc. I've judged them unknowingly out of the way I think, the way I feel, etc. But I've come to realize over the years that God has equipped different people in different ways. And this isn't an excuse for them not being who God's called them to be. But we've got to be careful that we don't put who we are on others and then become offended because they don't share the same heart, the same passion that we do. And then we become judgmental and critical towards them. God has made all of us. He's made us different. 1 Corinthians 12, we each have a place to fill in the body, and together we fill up the whole body to the full. And so what do I say? Be everything you're called to be, but don't try to make other people like you. You'll become offended in the process if you do. You'll judge them for their seemingly unspiritual ways because you see your own as far more spiritual. And let's just begin to celebrate the differences that God has made in the body, for without them, we wouldn't be supplied. That makes me feel like shouting, and I feel like celebrating a whole bunch of people out there. Have a great night.